Beautiful day in Sandestin, Florida. If you're not here, come on down. You might as well because everybody else is here this week. There's room for you. If you're in Sandestin, seriously, this week, I'd love to see you at church on Sunday, the gathering at Sandestin. We're going to talk about bearing one another's burdens. We've been looking at some of the biblical one another's, 51 of them in all. I sure won't preach on all of those, but we've been looking at a few of them. And this is the one we'll look at on Sunday. Today I took my walk, and as I was about halfway around the 3-mile circle that we generally walk here in Sandestin, though we change our route some, there was a fella, and I would say a little fella. He was young. He probably was 16, 17 years old, may have weighed 140 pounds, dripping wet, and he was unloading sand. And I guess he had a summer job for the landscaper, but he was it, and there was nobody else there, and there must have been 30 bags of sand left in the pickup truck, and he was just kind of had that look, that bent over look. And so, being a nice old man, I stopped and said, "Hey, can I help you?" And it wasn't much to me. I didn't have anywhere to be, and so we unloaded the sand. And it took us a little while, but with two of us it seemed to be a little easier, and I know he was relieved. And as I parted and said bye and was going to continue my walk, he just looked different. He was standing straight up, and he had a little bit more of a relieved look on his face and looked a bit happier. What happens when we bear one another's burdens in this world? We're going to think about that Sunday, but right here now we can know this, that we are acting out in the image of God when we bear one another's burdens. It is like God to want to help people when they are hurting and in crisis. So one reason it feels good when we help someone is because it calls out that image within us that God intends for us to be. That's good news, that if we're having a bad day, if we're depressed or stuck in a rut spiritually or in other ways, one bit of advice is get out and help someone. That is one of the quickest cures for the blues, for depression, for lack of feeling like you belong or matter, because it's what God intended us to do. Now there's bad news, and we'll think about that some Sunday too. There's a reason we don't help sometimes. There's a reason that we don't care about anybody else's burden. In fact, sometimes we disdain people who have burdens. Well, they ought to get a job, or they ought to pull their own weight, or whatever it is that we hear or sometimes think. There's a reason that we don't, and quite frankly, biblically, it's just called sin. It's where we really would care nothing about someone else and everything about us. And so we fight that constant battle, don't we, in our nature, in our lives, to want to only do what feels good to us. But there's more news. If we're going to hit the mark and be the kinds of Christians we're supposed to be, we need to look for those kind of burdens around us, but also use the gifts we have to care. We'll talk a little bit Sunday about Martin Luther, and he'll rise up once again and have something to say to us about this burden-bearing business. But it was his belief that anything good that happens to us is meant to, in the converse, help someone who bad things are happening to, or who do not have what they need. Luther believed, for instance, if I am educated, if I become learned, it is for the sake of those who are not wise or uneducated. If I become rich and have more than I need, it is really for the sake of those who are poor and don't have enough, because it is fulfilling the law of Christ when I share out of my abundance towards those who are in need. So the good news is we are to bear one another's burdens. The bad news is we don't want to sometimes. More bad news is we're all going to have burdens. You can count on it. But the best news is that God has put in place this wonderful system where when my burdens are heavy, you help me. When yours are heavy, I'll try to help you And ultimately, we can give our deepest, heaviest burdens first to God. Just admit that we can't carry them, and here you go, God, I need help with this. Come on Sunday, let's think about bearing one another's burdens. If you're not here this Sunday, I hope you have a great week, and maybe glance through Galatians 6, 1 through 10. You take care.